thank you everyone for attending this episode of FuruRadio on Layer 2 scaling solutions. So super happy to have you here, and definitely glad to have all our special guests as well. So we have Liam and Orest from Scroll, Ashwari and soon Hamza from Polygon, and Dosh from Gnosis Chain. So we can kind of just get into it. We'll do maybe a brief introduction. You can kind of introduce yourself, a little bit about your project, and then we can kind of get into what you're building and the topic at hand, so Layer 2 scaling solutions. So maybe we can start with the Scroll team then, and you guys can just kind of introduce yourself and a brief about your project.
Yeah, no worries. I guess I can kind of go first. So my name's Liam. I'm the community manager here at Scroll. Basically, I handle everything on obviously the community and like marketing front. So anything from Discord to social media and just like our general community growth strategy, hosting like regular community AMAs and that sort of thing. Basically what Scroll is what we're building is a fully EVM equivalent ZK rollup, and we're basically aiming to be one of the most developer-friendly scaling solutions, I guess, kind of available in the ZK landscape. I guess I'll pass over to Orest.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Liam. This is Orest. I'm doing infra at Scroll. I guess Liam gave a quick intro. One thing we'd like to add on top maybe is that our idea of becoming the developer-friendly go-to solution is by being able to leverage all of the ecosystem, utilities, documentation, and so on via being EVM equivalent. And so we now like to call what we do the native ZK EVM.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And then I guess Ashwari from Polygon.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Blazer, for having me here. When we talk about, so a little bit about me, I basically currently am handling all the fintech side at Polygon. So you can name the biggest fintechs in the world right now. And most of them, like right now, I'm connected with them, and we are building, like we are having conversations on building on Polygon. Most of these, like later during the year, we will be able to go out and see. So that is what my role is basically here. When we talk about Polygon, so Polygon, we look Polygon as like as a Swiss knife for Ethereum, where instead of like what our approach to the scaling world is, so every kind of business or every kind of user base or every kind of, let's say, work or enterprise actually needs to have a different kind of solution. They cannot, like, everyone has a different kind of requirements, everyone has a different kind of needs out there, and everyone actually is going ahead and having a different set of requirements. And that is where Polygon comes in. So Polygon, where we have a suite of 7 solutions that are out there, which basically caters to every segment of user base, be it an enterprise, be it a DeFi protocol, or let's say a fintech, or a gaming, NFT, and all those things. So some of the solutions that we have live are POS Chain, Polygon Edge, and Supernets. We also have the Polygon Nightfall beta live, and then Polygon Zero, Maiden, and actually the Polygon ZK EVM is something that is like very near to the launch. So most of them are on the testnets.
Perfect, thanks. And last but not least, Dosh from Gnosis.
Hey, Blazer. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I am Dosh from Gnosis. I do ecosystem development as well as business development for them. I've been developing on Gnosis / the XI chain for roughly, about 3 years now. So I'm not super new to this space. And in terms of what Gnosis is developing, essentially we're trying to be the home of DAOs. So all kinds of DAO tooling, public goods, all those kind of things are kind of our main demographic. Now, in terms of scaling solutions, we do have one. We have 2, but we're mostly supporting one, and that's optimistic rollups. And we recently funded a GIP for a team called Dark Forest, and they have been deploying on this optimistic rollup. And essentially, during this it's essentially a game, and during the start of the game, they have on-chain interactions, and the first round they did had about 86,000 TXs versus the mainnet had only about 76,000. So it went really well. So we're looking forward more to see the development and the use cases for optimistic rollups on Gnosis.
Awesome. Perfect. So thank you very much, everyone, for the introduction there. So just want to take a step back and kind of talk about, why we need these layer 2 scaling solutions and kind of what they are. I'm, of course, no expert, but just kind of, talking from a general market perspective. So in 2021, we kind of saw that with the explosion of the crypto market and all these transactions happening on Ethereum, that we saw a rise in gas prices. So at that point in time, we saw a lot of these side chains or like POS chains spawning from that increase in gas price, and a lot of the transactions then went to, side chains, Polygon, POS, Phantom, Avalanche, all those kind of side networks, Gnosis. So, what is different then about these layer 2 scaling solutions? Why do we need these layer 2 scaling solutions? And, what is it doing that's above and beyond what we've seen already today? So that's kind of where I want to open the discussion and talk about, as transactions are getting verified on these, on the main chain from these layer 2s, that's kind of like the benefit, right? So do we see that as like a step above kind of the layer 2 solutions, or sorry, the POS chains? And then kind of how do we see the network evolving or Ethereum evolving using these layer 2 solutions? So anyone can kind of jump in. Feel free to discuss kind of, the first question there.
I can open it up here a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about the actual like scaling solutions like Gnosis and Polygon. So if it wasn't for Gnosis and Polygon, and of course all the other side chains that have helped this, kind of ecosystem grow, we wouldn't have a lot of these apps, right? There's a lot of apps that essentially you can't use on mainnet when you have $200 and $300 worth of gas trying to make one action actually happen. And I believe last time I checked the numbers, there was about 203 million unique addresses on Ethereum, and that's about 22% up from the year before. And DeFi is around 2.3% of that. So if DeFi is only 2.3% of that, and of course you got to include the NFT market as well in there, and we already have problems with gas on Ethereum. Like it would be crazy to say that we can scale Ethereum to the point where we want to include most parts of the world, right? We got 7 billion people on the planet, and you're going to be looking at $10,000 gas prices if everyone was on Ethereum. So I don't think you could see crypto develop without side chains. Like it wouldn't be possible, especially with how vast and how much use case it brings to the current world.
And just to like build on to that particular thing, when we look at like today, all these layer 2s evolving. So even with the merge, so one of the myths that a lot of people have currently is that post merge, Ethereum will have a huge TPS and the gas prices will fall down and everything like that. So that also does not actually is true. Like the gas fee is going relatively down, and there will be no need for L2s. And like even post like merge, the TPS that we are expecting for Ethereum is somewhere around 10,000. And with using these layer 2s and everything, that's so even let's remove the layer 2s here. So having 10,000 transactions per day, imagine like bringing a game on blockchain, and that game which is like a, let's say EA game, EA sports game or something like that. And that means that that single game can go ahead and consume all the block space here. So when we talk about L2s, their contribution towards evolving the Ethereum ecosystem will always be out there, and anyone and everyone, I've been like seeing this evolution from like when we were just a plasma chain. So if you look at it, like we were just like a plasma chain going out, batch processing the transactions and putting it on Ethereum. That was where we started, and as we understood that the world needs a lot of more solutions, so those kinds of things bringing in. So and today, as we look at it, we look at Ethereum as being the settlement layer, and L2 or Polygon as being one of the biggest contributor towards the layer which is doing the transactions, or you can say transaction layer, and then rolling it up to Ethereum as and when required, so that we keep on imbibing the security that Ethereum provides.
Right on. So yeah, so basically, layer 2's help to scale Ethereum, but then also keeping the security of the main chain of Ethereum.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think securities, like you guys pretty much hit it on the head. Like security is probably, it is the most important factor when like talking about scalability, I guess. Like the way I kind of look at it as well is like, even like other layer 1 side chains, and that even if they do kind of eventually warrant like the same significant demand for block space that Ethereum does, there's no doubt that they'll also eventually run into the scalability problem as well. So it just kind of makes sense for like roll-ups to be able to just like handle like transactions off chain and just like outsource their security to layer 1 Ethereum.
Gotcha. So do you guys foresee a world then where people aren't even transacting on Ethereum? They're basically just doing everything on a layer 2. And then these layer 2s are just batching transactions or processing transactions on Ethereum as like a transactional layer. And basically you wouldn't be doing any kind of actions on there and on DeFi, on gaming, on anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think most like dApps and applications altogether will live at layer 2. Like it'll just become like, it won't be feasible for anyone to really like build on layer 1, I don't think, in the long term. Like fees like are just going to, as we move into like more and more bull markets, fees will just continue to rise at layer 1. So it's pretty much, yeah, I think like going forward, like over the next like 2+ years, we're just going to start seeing a lot of dApps deploying natively on layer 2 as well. Like I think Synthetics, for example, is a good example of like an app that was kind of crippled at layer 1, and now you see them kind of gaining lots of traction again since moving to like Optimism and being kind of a pioneer of layer 2 scaling solutions there.
And then maybe to add to this, I guess the big question right now remains: can I trustlessly, permissionlessly exit from an L2, for instance, onto Ethereum? And as long as this is not resolved, I think there will be use cases where layer 1 prevails, where people want and are willing to accept the significantly higher fees in exchange for the security guarantees. But then the big turning point could be setting up an L2 and seeing it in action, actually on like deployed out in the wild, where you have all of those permissionless exit guarantees, decentralization, and so on. I think that could be a turning point.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I think I agree. Like exit is something which is very important, and like currently, if you look at that exit point on Polygon, that's very much available. The POS bridge itself goes out and provides that exit point, and like within minutes you can actually go out and create an exit from the Polygon chain directly to the main chain. So that is something which I completely agree to, and it also depends upon the solution that you're using. So one of the research papers that I have contributed on scaling, so there are various types of like scaling solutions which are there, and not everyone. So let's say this is majorly with optimistic rollups, where we have so there are various types of scaling solutions, I would say. Some, like, one is optimistic one, second one is deterministic one. So with optimistic, what happens is we feel that everything is good while we are doing the transaction, but while we are exiting, what happens is we have to ensure that there is no fraud committed on the chain. So there is a lag period which is available. But I think today the solutions for them is also there. But like majorly, if you look at Polygon per se, these kinds of exit are very easily available on the main chain. If you want to exit, if you want to come to the come to the Polygon chain, I think the POS bridge today does that. And having on the Ethereum ecosystem, if you look at the biggest bridge or biggest asset, biggest bridge, which is based on the total volume, it holds on. So Polygon Bridge is, I think, the at the top right now for the Ethereum ecosystem.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, just to take a step back for maybe someone that doesn't know kind of what these layer 2 solutions are, we're kind of right now with the ZK rollup versus optimistic rollup. So seems like optimistic rollups kind of came out first. It's technically easier to institute that scaling solution because, you know, it's just, you can, if there's a fault in one of the transactions, someone can check it and then kind of put a, I think they call it a fault proof against the transaction, and then people can go back and check on that. Whereas ZK rollups more technically difficult to implement because, you know, it's done automatically in a batch transaction. So, you know, those are the two solutions we have right now. I mean, what are the problems, I guess? Are we going to see a different kind of solution? Are these kind of the two that we have right now? Is there maybe a third? And then what are the problems with adoption? You know, you guys had mentioned, you know, bringing dApps over could be difficult. You know, if there's a bunch of different layer 2s, are we kind of left with the same problem we had with sidechains? Whereas, you know, now we have fragmentation between these different layer 2s, and now there's issues because liquidity is on all these different chains. Or is there a way to kind of communicate with these layer 2s? And then, you know, is there other problems that we see with layer 2s over, say, just using a POS chain or maybe the main chain? What do you guys think about that?
I think that's a very good question as well. Like, why do we need various solutions or different types of solutions? So my answer to this would be, we require this because there are different needs and different requirements which people have basically when they are going out and utilizing it. So let's say an NFT project might have a completely different thought process while they are going out and rolling out or finding a particular solution, and on the other hand you might have different other solutions which might, like, let's say a DeFi protocol or a fintech or an enterprise going and rolling out, so they might have a complete different version of requirements that are there. So that is why I think these kinds of solutions will always exist, and it would not be like there's one perfect solution for scalability. That would never be there. So that is, I think, biggest one. That being said, if we want to talk about what are the different types of layer 2s, so one is like the state channels which are there. So we have like a Raiden network or Seller out there. Then we have like the Plasma child chains which are there, for which like Polygon actually started with, which was Matic earlier. Then you have like the side chains, and then you have the rollups. In rollups, you have like two examples which I told you. Like, one was optimistic rollup, and the other was deterministic rollup. So optimistic rollup, just to give a little bit of context, is something where I explain with a layman term, is like you don't need to actually go out and mathematically prove that every transaction is happening correctly and there is no fault. You process those transactions on the chain, but when you are exiting that chain, what happens is there's a time period which is given out, and based on that time period which is given out, what happens is in this time period, if someone goes out and challenges this particular transaction that has been done by this address, then what happens is you lose, and that charge is proven, then basically you are caught, and you are not allowed to exit. On the other hand, if you look at the deterministic rollups which are there, so deterministic rollups work on a different way altogether, which are also known as zero knowledge proof rollups. And these are basically where you run all your computations and off chain and submit a validity proof on Ethereum. There are various ways to use that. We currently use Plonky 2 to generate these proofs currently. So that is there, and basically this is something which is again there. And here then the last one is Valladiums. So if I don't know if anyone has heard of that, but Valladium is also there, where what happens is data is kept off chain instead of sending it on the Ethereum main chain, which in a way Polygon Avail is doing. And where what happens is all the data is, because being kept off chain, they can have a higher TPS, somewhere around 20,000 transactions is something which is there. An example is like Stockware, where they are trying to do it, and this is exactly which Polygon ZK EVM as well as Polygon Avail is trying to do. So I mean, different types of solutions are required. They would 100% be required, and there are various kinds of requirements which require them. Then coming to the next question, which is like how do everyone communicate and everything like that. I think there's not a perfect solution right now. If you look at Polkadot currently, Polkadot is like creating the parachains, and with that you have parathreads through which you can actually go out and communicate. So that's one. Then usually on other chains, we are relying on bridges, but is it perfect? I have no answer to that yet.
I think I allow myself to disagree about this kind of truism statement that, there's going to be different requirements and different use cases, and so different solutions will be around. I disagree with specifically the kind of parallel existence rationale for optimistic and ZK rollups, because once we have ZK rollups that are computationally feasible, and maybe the maths have advanced a bit more and the hardware is even better, I don't think there will be a reason to keep optimistic rollups around, just because of the finality delay that will be needed, just theoretically as you described, in order to give a chance to create a fraud proof.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, actually. And personally, myself, I can kind of see where you're coming from, Arrest, and maybe optimistic rollups are a stepping stone to ZK, to something more robust, right? I think maybe the benefit of that is you don't have to do many batch transactions, or I guess maybe, I don't know if they do any transactions onto the Ethereum main chain. So in the event that you have, high gas fees at the moment, maybe you're saving some of those network fees. Like, I'm not sure, maybe someone else can answer about ZK rollups, if the batch transactions have to be done at a certain time, and then there's the option maybe of having an extremely high gas fee at that moment to complete those transactions on the main chain.
Well, that's a design choice. That's a design choice and something that could be done even dynamically. So the way you can envision batch transactions is that you get to pick how many you batch, how strong you compress. And so I think the interesting bit about ZK rollups at this point is how do you get them computationally feasible in the first place? I think that's where, like, the cost of creating proofs, validity proofs, I think that's this interesting bottleneck and that's where you need capital, you need input, and it's probably diminishing. And the gas fees are probably diminishing when you compare them to creating the validity proof.
Okay, awesome. So we can close up kind of on that and go to the next topic here, which is, does ETH 2.0 change anything for scaling solutions?
Oh yeah, it does. So the ETH 2.0, I think, is passé. We are not supposed to call it that way. But the merge paves way for dunk sharding, which I think is just a super cool thing for any rollups out there because of lowering the data storage costs so badly. So I think that's super interesting to every rollup out there.
I think when you look at the ETH merge happening on the structure level, there is not much change, but I will not say there is not any change, which is there. So changes are gonna be there, but they won't be like something of a way on the language side or on the way in which we create contracts and everything today. There will be, obviously, because we are changing the consensus mechanism, those kinds of changes will definitely happen.
So, Ors, maybe you want to expand a little bit on the storage capacity change. So, by what factors does that increase by?
I'm not sure about the exact factors, but maybe to give a bigger picture here, the very idea of a rollup, as opposed to, or in contrast to a Validium, is that you get to store all of the data that is needed to basically see the transactions that happened in the rollup on the L1, and so this way you get a lot of permissionless, etc., way easier, and because of that, also it is that right now putting this data onto the rollup, onto the L1, makes the rollup kind of expensive. Now, with dunk sharding, data will be way cheaper, and so this will, I think, speed up, accelerate the adoption of rollups and pave way for production-ready mainnets.
Awesome. So, I just want to jump in a little bit into maybe the kind of, I don't know if ZK Sync kind of pioneered this idea, but the idea of like a volition, or being able to, bundle a couple different networks together so you can kind of cross communicate between them. And that's kind of around the idea of scaling these layer 2s and, not having fragmentation. So if you guys kind of thought about, a way to cross communicate with different networks, or maybe you want to expand on a little bit of the idea of like a volition.
Can you come again? Sorry, I think I lost voice.
Yeah, so as I understand it, like a volition's a hybrid solution, which kind of allows, kind of application-specific networks to communicate between each other through data availability between different networks. So I think ZK Sync is working on something like that. I'm just wondering, what you guys think of in terms of communicating between these different layer twos and how you kind of avoid this fragmentation that we've seen with the current setup with all these different side chains.
I think that is something which we will have to wait for and watch, because currently once these solutions are live, then that is the next step would be this. But currently I think anything side would only be based on hypothesis. So I would not take a dig here.
Do you mean Starkwest volition?
I'm not sure if they're doing that setup. I think,
So I'm familiar with Starkwest volition, which is basically a more dynamic and customizable way of selecting how much data availability do I want. And I think that's independent of the question of interoperability. I think the question of interoperability and, for instance, composability of dApps, that's a separate one. And it's actually made possible by EVM equivalents of some rollups.
Yeah, I think Immutable X is a good example, because I think they at the moment use Starkwest Validium, but eventually they'll evolve into a volition where they can basically switch, where the user can basically switch between Validium and rollup mode. I think that's how it kind of works.
Yep.
And the Validium obviously just posts proofs to layer one and not data, whereas the rollup does. So it's just about like whichever one the user kind of is happy to use at the time.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so the user, I guess, can decide how much security they want to take on, and maybe something that's slightly less secure will have more scalability.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it kind of plays out in the long run, actually, because once like general purpose, like full-blown ZK rollups are out in like full swing, and like, one day when we do have like sub 5 cent, sub 1 cent transactions, like what even is the difference in cost between like a Validium and a rollup then? Like you might as well just go with the rollup, pay the 1 cent and have, like 100% Ethereum security. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But yeah, like at the moment, like it's pretty cool that the user's going to have the choice in the short term, I guess, the short to medium term. Because like for an everyday user, for example, if they like come online and they want to buy like, a $10 NFT, then they're probably going to prefer to use the Validium or something. Maybe it's quite a bit cheaper. But we'll see.
Yeah, totally. And I think it tends to get a bit messy to speak about scalability, as in Validium being more scalable. At this point, it's probably going to be more of a question of price that the user is willing to pay for having the data availability security of the L1.
Yeah, 100%. Like ultimately, it's basically a race to $0 fees while also like upholding a high Ethereum level security. So it'd be very, very interesting. But I think like as Arrest said before, like after like I think we have like proto dang sharding first, which is I believe ERP 48, 44 next year. If I'm kind of explaining this right, that's kind of like placing like infrastructure for like full dank sharding, which will come later on, unlocking like further scalability for rollups and that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, ZK rollups are going to become so cheap regardless, kind of, when Ethereum moves like further through its, I guess, layer one scalability roadmap. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. I from what I've seen so far, maybe not a lot of people care so much about the security, or they're just want to continue doing what they're doing. So, how do we make the push to get people to layer twos, and is that important, or is that just the natural progression of things, and that's something we're going to see?
I don't think it's true that people don't care about security. I think there is a lot of exposure these days to, just scams and also bugs, basically. And I think people do care. And I think there's a lot of trust that a brand bears, just being well known is something that people trust. But it does feel to me as though we are in the early days, and that trustless, like brand independent security guarantees are something that will and are already appealing to broader and broader masses of people.
Yeah, so maybe to kind of build on that a bit, seeing the protocols go to these networks is kind of, you think what will drive people to go there. So like say Uniswap launching on a ZK rollup, and then now that gives people the option. They know the brand, they know the name, they trust the network, and then that's what's going to drive adoption.
Yeah, 100%. Like I think... Yeah, go on.
First step, but ideally, in the second one, will it be that users will see, oh, I can go on this rollup and I can do, like, I can run a swap trustlessly. I don't need to trust the rollup operator. I don't need to trust the sequence and so on. And so I think that is going to be an argument in favor of such solutions.
Did you want to add something there, Liam?
No, I think the rest kind of covered it there.
Okay, perfect.
No, it's all good.
Okay, cool. So we can kind of go to the last question. I think here we've discussed everything else. And so kind of, what's the future then for the Ethereum network? We have... I think this roll-up stuff, this layer 2 stuff is kind of the first step. And then kind of, Vitalik moves into this idea of like plasma or like different, I don't profess to know too much about plasma, but different kind of chains interacting at the same time with each other, maybe main chains, right? So, when plasma is live, for instance, do we still need these layer 2s? How do we kind of see the network growing over the next, 3 to 5 years?
Well, Vitalik's made it pretty clear that he sees a roll-up centric future for Ethereum. And so I think that L2s are here to stay, and there will be even more layers on top, making fees and, those like maybe cheap and low security dependent dApps even more accessible.
Any other thoughts on that from Polygon or Gnosis? And welcome, Hamza. Just seen you join here.
Hey guys, sorry, I was stuck on a bunch of calls. I could not join earlier. Thanks, Blizzard, for having me. Thank you, guys. For us, I think just to add on that, I think security definitely matters. So decentralization and security definitely matters. You can see this even today with the trade size on different chains versus Ethereum, different chains versus Polygon. You can look at all the X numbers. You can look at 1 inch numbers, parameters. Those are clear indicators of where the big ticket size is comfortable with, where you can clearly see that. So those indicators of the trend that layer one, the trade that was happening last year is pretty much dead right now. And these are not, I'm not saying this out of the blue. Like you can look at on-chain numbers and you'll see how the data is going down for alt layer 1 usage. And it is clear that layer 2s are the way, keeping in mind after the merge and all of that. Like layer 2s are clearly in just getting started, especially with ZK EVM, with Scroll, even what we are going to do in the next couple of months. So yeah, I think it'll be pretty exciting, and more importantly, I think users follow devs, and not the other way around. Like, I mean, yes, other way around also, but I think devs will go where security is there. Good devs will go where security is there and where they can build sustainable products. You can clearly see this with Ethereum and the Polygon relationship. Like, Polygon was the first place where these blue chip protocols had expanded out. And we'll see that same thing with ZK. That will come. That will happen. So yeah, I mean, we'll build good stuff. Then users will follow, and then users will inhabit that place. Users will come. So it's just how we have played this. Like, this industry has grown, and from Bitcoin to Ethereum, from Ethereum to layer 2s, and I think this will become more relevant in the next few quarter or earlier next year. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree there with Hamza. Oh, sorry, Oris, go ahead.
I just wanted to reiterate, yeah, absolutely. I think the DevX is terrible right now, and it's so hard for developers to enter the space, so not to mention users. I think that I have very high hopes in that DevX is going to improve, and this is going to draw more developers into the ecosystem, and this is going to create more dApps and better UX, and that is going to draw more users, actual end users, into the ecosystem. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely agree with your point there, Oris. I think once we get a little bit more traction in like main markets, like what you see, I don't know if you guys are keeping up with Reddit and Arbitrum. Essentially, they partnered together along with FTX. So now as you're seeing these more common use technologies from Web 2 kind of starting to transition to Web 3, I think we're going to start seeing a lot more users coming on, at least for, I don't know about devs, but for users trying to experience what is this cryptocurrency and what's happening. And you see it quite a bit with communities, and then you're going to see it in games as well. Like, NFTs are a thing, and I keep hearing like big AAA games are having complete crypto sectors now, trying to integrate blockchain technology. And with having like such an easy kind of ramp into, say, I don't know, you just start playing a game, you kind of get interested, and your friend says, hey, we can sell our skins now. And it's like, okay, well, what can we buy? It's like, you can buy whatever you want. So that's kind of bringing a lot more use case. And I think in the next wave, or in our next bull run, whenever that happens, I think we're going to see a lot more retail market, not nearly as crypto native people that are going to be kind of playing around on these blockchains. And I don't know if you guys saw, but when they were playing around, all the DeFi, super crypto native people were playing around the chains. We bogged down pretty much every network. So yeah, like if you're starting to introduce millions of users, yeah, it's gonna be crazy, and yeah, it's gonna be awesome. So yeah, definitely layer 2s. I could say, like, even layer 2s built on top of layer 2s, if that's a thing, is going to be something that will definitely be used for applications that have a lot of traction, a lot of traffic. Because at the end of the day, if you're paying $1 for a transaction, you want to bring it down to a cent, quarter of a cent, or a hundredth of a cent, and you have millions of users on it, you're still going to need to build something on top of that.
L3s, L4s, absolutely.
Yeah, how deep can you go here? But yeah, that's a good point. Just, I guess application specific chains, right? Or, different chains for different use cases. As Polygon said, they're creating many chains through.
Yeah, wanted to add one thing. Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but wanted to on the what do you call the Web 2 side of things, as you can like right now, thing was pretty good. They are doing the moons thing on Arbitrum. They have launched the NFT marketplace, and they're calling it Avatar Marketplace on Polygon. So that is clearly happening, and you can see, like why these chains are these big companies which have millions of user base, and like you must have seen the Instagram integration on Polygon for minting. So it's exclusively minting on Ethereum and Polygon. So which is a big deal, because like you clearly see why these big projects are not projects. I mean, these are like top 10 companies in the world choosing projects, choosing Ethereum scaling solutions, clearly with Arbitrum and Polygon right now. But of course, this will go more up, go way up in the that is one thing, and we by early next month. I mean, I can give this alpha right now. I hope you don't share this outside. But we are announcing something big. We also teased it earlier, I think last week or something, in the consumer finance space. So think of how Instagram did that for NFTs on Polygon. Something like that will also be on the DeFi side of things. This is a very big consumer fintech side. So I think that because the next wave of users will not be crypto native people, will either come from gaming or via these Web2 interfaces, or these Web2 companies that clearly understand product design and product thinking more than us protocol designers. Like we on the inside, we like to think of ourselves as like very native protocol people. However, these product people that are coming from the Web2 space are building better user experiences and seamless user experiences for people to come in. So yeah, just wanted to add that.
Yeah, totally. And also like the demographic too, right? You're not pertaining to people that are not really technology friendly anymore, versus like, I don't know, my parents, for example, wouldn't really understand this. But when you're talking about the younger generations, all kind of discussing NFTs, playing video games and always having something with like crypto related stuff, you're going to see massive adoption within like 5 to 10 years, because it's just going to be a normal thing.
Totally. Okay, 100%.
But then again, maybe we don't need a blockchain for that. I'm not sure how far we should stretch. We should be stretching that.
In what terms do you mean that?
Well, there's many use cases where blockchains are not the optimal solution in terms of tech. And so I guess it's kind of easy to run into this trap of thinking, like, let's turn everything into an NFT. And I think that's what recently Instagram, for instance, started doing, like showcasing your JPEG NFTs. Probably not the ideal solution. Probably it is that we are finding ourselves in a time where people are playing around with use cases, and it is very early. And I don't believe that many of them will stick. I think we need many more iterations, and we need to find out what actually makes sense, and where it makes sense for your parents or your grandparents not to understand the inner workings, but still use, let's say, adapt. Finance being a great example, I think that really makes sense.
I think I agree and disagree at the same time. I think once the technology gets built out and it becomes a lot easier, maybe you won't even really know that you're interacting with blockchain. But with blockchain, you're providing all the security and all those kind of things that, in the Web2 life would make life a lot harder, right? If you have any kind of finance or any kind of game within that, it becomes very, very hard. But if you have, built-in fiat ramps, built-in, processors, you don't need to deal with, getting any kind of licensing from Visa or anything like that, which is like what's happening currently in any kind of tech companies.
Yeah, although licensing is, I think, not the best example. I think a better example of something we don't need is middleman, cutting out the middleman. I think that's very clearly an advantage to every person, to the regular users. And we might want to have licensing nonetheless. But I think there's many use cases that are being elaborated on and tested around, played around with, such as certain use cases of JPEG NFTs that will not stick around, and that's for the better.
Awesome. Yeah, great discussion. And I just want to kind of iterate on the fact that, so you guys are building the layer 2, the infrastructure, and then now we're kind of seeing hopefully these retail or, larger institutions coming in and building their interfaces on top and kind of creating a seamless user experience. So I think all of that is interesting. It's a different kind of interaction that we've seen in the past where we just had like a large user base. Whereas now we're seeing these companies come in and build these easy to use interfaces so people can just interact, with the back end without, maybe as Dosh mentioned, without even knowing they're interacting with blockchain, or that they're kind of reaping the benefits of what's going on there. So, like we saw in early DeFi, there was a lot of protocols that were kind of useless or unneeded. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing now with NFTs. But as we transition, we bring in these retail institutions, we kind of define real use cases, maybe medical records, mortgages, that kind of things into, NFTs or soulbound NFTs. We can kind of keep building on that. So, I think this layer 2 solutions are kind of a step towards seeing the end result and the end goal of seeing, a fully robust blockchain world or, infrastructure. So definitely interesting to see where we go from here.
Absolutely.
So I guess we got a couple more minutes here. I just want to ask one more question, and do we see the way that the industry is now with the layer 2 solutions, with optimistic rollups or ZK rollups, that we've solved the blockchain trilemma, or do we still have a ways to go in solving this issue?
I think the trilemma is something that is yet to be solved. I would say we are reaching as close as possible to solve this trilemma. And but if we go out and say, have we solved it? I think a trilemma needs to be solved if we see trilemma to be solved as one chain, that is yet not done. But if we see multiple chains coming up and solving the trilemma, then it is kind of solved. If you look at layer 2s, they are actually going out and solving for one issue that Ethereum has, which is scalability. So if you combine both of them, it is solved. If you look at, let's say, Polkadot ecosystem, the security is being provided by the Polkadot ecosystem and parachains being building on that, then a trilemma can be said in two chains coming together and solving the trilemma. That is done, but on an individual level, I don't think like any chain can go out and say that they have actually solved the trilemma.
I think we can't claim to have solved the trilemma as long as there is not at least a few, probably even, mainnets functional out there in the wild. And that is not the case yet. So I think there's still a lot of work to be done.
For sure. I can agree with that. Well, we're heading towards the right direction anyways. So I think, in these kind of bear markets or bear cycles, it's interesting to see these. I think that's where the most of the, production is happening, or evolution. So it's interesting to see where we're going to be in the next year or two, but definitely still early for layer 2 scaling solutions. So if you haven't checked them out, check out Scroll, check out Polygon, check out Gnosis Chain. And then everyone who attended here today will receive a OAT. So we do have a form that you need to fill out on our Twitter. So head over to the Furu Combo Twitter, and then you can put in your address there, and you can claim the OAT for this event. So do you guys have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, you can actually sign up to check out Scroll as well now.
Perfect. Yeah, feel free to shout out the URL, or you can head over to Scroll Twitter as well if you want to shout that out.
Yeah, we've recently opened up registration for our pre-alpha testnet, so feel free to head to our Twitter.
Awesome. And yeah, I think Polygon, Ashwari, you guys just launched the ZK EVM as well. Is that available for people to check out as well?
The public testnet is something which is going live by the end of this month. So yeah, then it would be something which is there. The documentation, on the other hand, is completely available on a public forum. So we can go ahead to polygon.technology. Under that, just go under Polygon ZK EVM, and you have all the documentations available there.
Perfect. So thank you very much, Liam Orest from Scroll, Ashwari, and a little bit of Hamza from Polygon, and Doge from Gnosis Chain for being here today, and everyone for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day, everyone. Cheers. Cheers.
Have an amazing day. See you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.